Thank you for joining us this morning. We're excited to have our assessment director meeting for October. Looking forward to sharing some information with all of you, as well as answering questions and getting feedback. And I'm really appreciating the chat and people's great advice. There's a lot of great advice in there. So we have to take some of those great advices for our quotes the next couple of months. So please, if you want to take a moment to answer the question about giving the best advice you've ever been given, feel free to keep that going in the chat, and then we'll move along with our slides and move on to the next slide, which is our quote for this month. Comes from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, as well as lots of other books and weekly newsletters. And that I appreciated this as we're thinking about, we have our release of our EL data that came out this month, earlier this week. And I know that many of you are analyzing and reviewing that data. We've gotten lots of questions from people asking about where it is and when it will be a data gateway. We don't have a final date for the data gateway, which will include growth. Sometime mid-November is what we're aiming for. There was a delay with the data file and getting that back from Cambium on Monday. It was supposed to come to us the same time that the data was in the reporting system, in the RISE reporting system, but we had a delay from some QC issues. It did not impact the data that you're seeing in the portal, impacted our data file. So we have a delay of about a week of that data file, which may put our growth calculations and being in data gateway back just a little bit. Right now, we're still aiming for that mid-November timeline, but once we get the data file from them, our plan is by next Monday, the 27th, we should get that data file from Cambium. Then we should know more about the final date that we should see the information, including growth in data gateway. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer as much as we can for right now. But our quote is about setting goals and having systems. So goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress and thinking through. We have a goal for knowing whether we're moving forward, but we have a system for making that progress. All right, some additional information for you all. We had at our board meeting this past month, a few things were approved. We had our carry forward spend plan was approved by the board. A big portion of our carry forward money was planning to go towards item development. So that was approved. We'll be working with Cambium on some additional contract amendments to have lots more item development over the next year or two, to continue to have some development in our high school and hopefully get benchmarks available sooner for our high school when that shifts down to being with Cambium. Additionally, looking at some additional development and including standard setting for our new math standards when we assess those new math standards. So that was all looped into our plans for carry forward, and will be a contract amendment with Cambium in the December board meeting is what we're planning. The other thing was in October, there were two big discussions from our board. Linked in the notes, you can see that our board made some statutory requests. So moving forward, as we move into the 26th legislative session, there are some statutory requirements that the board is requesting be part of changes in the legislation. One of the things that might impact the people here on a statutory change was looking at the learning plans for math. We think it was kind of an oversight that those were included still when the reading learning plans were adjusted. The math was still in there. So that is one of the requirements that many of you have been working on for those K-3 early learning plans, that only math is in legislation right now. So there's a request to remove those. And the other request is that we have a funding priority request. So the board also goes through any of the changes that would take funding, and they rank that list. You can see also in the notes for this page, or also linked here, the legislative funding priorities. Two big things that impact assessment for legislative funding, and they're related. So the first is kind of a partnership with Teaching and Learning and us, and that's looking at a K-8 ELA and math initiative. So we've had this K-3 reading initiatives for several years that involved teachers and educators and science of reading and coaches, et cetera. There's a request to have that look at expanding up through grades 8 and including math. So a K-8 ELA and math funding, it's a pretty big funding request, multiple millions, like tens of millions of dollars. And that includes a couple of things. One of those things would be to provide assessments for students in all of those grades for literacy and math for K-8. And then the other thing would be looking at other math supports, math coaching, that kind of stuff, so including math in that. That was ended up being the boards, when they ranked their priorities for funding, that was number 4. So out of 10-ish, I think it ended up being 9 things, that was ranked number 4 on their legislative funding priorities. Included in that would be some funding for assessments of students to determine what that looks like, how we will measure the progress of students. And if that doesn't pass, so we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. We do have our K-3 math contract that right now is with Acadians. We have Acadians math for our K-3 math contract. That's up in June of 26. That contract is up, so we'll be looking at renewing that contract. Our trick is we only have $300,000 of legislative funding for that assessment, which equates to about $1.50 per student. That is not enough to provide licenses for any of the vendors that we currently work with outside of the paper pencil, like DMG product, which has been sunsetted but okayed for us through the remainder of our contract, our current contract, which ends in June. So the $1.50 per student would not be enough to provide assessments for students in K-3, which is what currently is in code. So if that big K-8 math and ELA priorities funding doesn't happen, we want to make sure we are requesting additional funding for a K-3 math assessment if it's not looped in with that K-8 ELA and math priority. So we're also asking for additional funding for K-3 math assessment if the other bill doesn't move forward. So those were some of the things that ended up being number 8 on the priority list of the board's priorities for legislative funding. So if you want to look more into that, that is really just the board's recommendations to the legislature for things that they are going to prioritize in this coming session. Okay, coming up in the November board meeting, there are a couple of things that will be at the full board meeting in November. One will be a list of possible waivers. So our board requested in September that that we will take a look at any of the federally mandated requirements and take a look at what are the things that we could possibly ask for waivers on. So we've worked up a list of possible waivers of things that we already have flexibility on, of things that are really not flexible, or things that might be recommended that we could have flexibility with. And our board will be discussing those in November. The other thing that they'll be discussing is coming out of our standards assessment committee, taking a look at our alternate science standards from DLM, the EE's revision for science. So that will be something that the full board will be reviewing in November. I think those are updates for the board meetings. Okay, the next meeting after that coming up will be our APAC meeting, November 3rd. We don't have a completely finalized agenda for this yet, but our big topics that we'll be discussing at the APAC meeting, we'll be bringing to them some PEEP updates that we're planning on hopefully piloting this next year. We have to have the PEEP assessment that includes growth for the 27 school year. So 26-27, we'll have some updates to the PEEP assessment. So we'll be taking those updates before we pilot them to our policy advisors in November. We'll also be reviewing any of the accountability implications for these transitions in our assessments, from high school assessments being grade-based, moving to course-based, and things we need to start to consider for accountability. That will be another discussion that we'll be discussing with APAC. And then finally, like I mentioned, there's this K-8 ELA and math legislation that is the number 4 priority of our board going forward in legislation this year. And our team, as well as the teaching and learning team, would like to get some feedback from our policy advisors and our technical advisors on recommendations for statewide and LEA goals. In the past for our K-3 legislation, those goals that were set at the legislature may not possibly be attainable. They were extremely ambitious goals. And so we'd like to get feedback before moving forward with legislation on recommendations of what we think would be still ambitious but attainable goals for a K-8 ELA and math legislation moving forward. So we'll be taking that discussion to our APAC on November 3rd. And then the TAC meeting, which is our next slide, the technical advisor meeting is later in November. At that meeting, we'll be reviewing our RISE and UA Plus achievement and growth information as well as participation. We'll be talking about our PEEP updates and talking about standard setting plans for including growth at the individual and at the program level for PEEP. We'll be discussing that with our TAC, talking about our development plans for our high school assessment, talking through the same thing as with TAC, our accountability implications for assessment transitions. And then one of the things that we'll also be talking about with our TAC in November and then at our following APAC meeting in January. So we have a smaller timeline for APAC, so couldn't fit as many things in for our policy advisors in this meeting. But in January, we will be discussing this topic with APAC, but with TAC in November. And that's an accuracy for everyone. It's a different way of looking at accountability and calculating growth is something that our data and statistics team has been looking at, and we'd like to get feedback from our technical advisors before we bring this to our policy advisors. So those are the plans for November, and then after those meetings in November, we'll make sure we provide you all with a follow-up of the recommendations from the policy advisors and then from our technical advisors. I think that is the end of my slides. Yes. So if you have questions about any of those things, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to communicate with all of you.
Can you update the slides, Emily? I added something. Thank you. So we have been working as an assessment team to put together some parent resources for you. And so we just wanted to share what we have so far. There's links on this page. They're available on the corresponding USBE assessment page. For the Utah Aspire Plus, it's still the vendor page that's available on. But so we have some parent resources for RISE, UA Plus, Acadiance Reading, ACT, and WIDA at this time. We're continually working on adding some more parent resources so that you can share that information with parents to better help them understand their students' assessment results and what those assessments are and why they are given to their student. Hopefully that will help with parents understanding reports as well as potentially reducing the number of opt-outs if parents have a better understanding of what the assessments are and what they're used for and why they provide value for them and their child and the school. That's it.
There is a question. So Brian, the ELA scores being added to the data gateway. So we mentioned that just briefly, there was an issue with the data file. Right now we're still anticipating middle of November, but I don't have a final date yet. But as soon as we do have the final date for when the growth will be calculated, we'll have ELA scores in data gateway. So math and science are already in data gateway, but ELA scores, we're anticipating mid-November. It may be closer to end of November. We haven't received the data file back from Cambium because they had to QC a couple more things. So we'll get that data file from them on Monday, October 27th. And then it will take our data gateway, our data and statistics team a couple of weeks to calculate growth and do their checks and make sure it looks good before we post that in data gateway. So right now we're still on the same timeline of mid-November, but we're about a week out from our originally planned date. So it may be closer to end of November. And then just a reminder for everybody that we're still planning on school report cards early January. I can't remember the exact date, but early January for the embargoed review for you all, and then January 27th, end of January for the public release for school report cards. That date hasn't been changed yet, but we'll keep you posted if there's continued issues with getting that data file from Cambium.
That's me. I might also say that, your ELA reports, you can get your ISRs and your scores in the RISE reporting, portal. They just don't have growth or anything, but yeah, if they are there for you to access in the RISE reporting portal. You just need to adjust your time. I can't remember what it, adjust the time filter. Yes, and so you'll be able to see that.
Last year.
Yep. All right, next slide. All right, we started the stamp assessment this week for those of you who have dual language immersion classes. So far, doing all right, not without its bumps. But considering this is the first time we've ever given this test and this is the first week and we're on day 4, we are doing pretty good. If you have non-teacher users, principals, coaches that need to be added to Avant, you'll need to, your LEA level person will need to request that access. You can just click on the link to the Avant Utah website and there's a big old button that says request help, request, what's that say? Support, thank you. Request support. My eyes are not awake yet this morning. Click on the big old red request support. You can put your list in there and they will get those users added for you. Next slide. If your teacher didn't get the email with that Dropbox link to their test codes, their teacher test code, their student test codes, you can, if you are an LEA user, you can share the link to your teachers. And then they can click on the link, make their Dropbox account and go on just as our instructions told them to get their link, to get their codes. It will go, they will need to make an account with whatever email is attached to that folder. Every folder has a little email address and they need to match. If it goes to a Cactus email address that a teacher doesn't have access to or any situation like that, you can just go one to the right next to that link and click the 3 dots and you can download that folder and share it to the teacher if they need it. You can go up one step and you can download your entire LEA folder if you want. There's many ways to access these links for your teachers. And I just put a link on this, the guide for how your teachers can access Dropbox, make an account, those sorts of things. Just while we're here, any Avant questions? Any Avant questions?
Those be RISE ELA question.
Okay, great.
No, there is one. There was one for David. But
Yeah.
Well, you just answered
Yeah.
that about receiving the Dropbox logins.
Oh, yeah.
So if they still haven't been able to receive them, do we have a workaround or a question?
Yes, this is it. You can share, if you're a LEA user, you can share their folder directly to them. You can download it and email it to them. You can share the link with them.
Now there's questions.
Sorry, I'm not in the Zoom, so.
Okay, if I have a student who is not rostering, what do I do?
Same as any other student for any other assessment. Send me an email and I will check it out.
Okay, is a mouse required for stamp?
Oh yeah, I got this email yesterday. If you have a touch screen, my answer to that is I don't know, but I will find out. We have our meeting with their technical people tomorrow. So if I can't find the answer today, I will know for sure tomorrow. And I'll put it in the XAD memo. And if you are the person that emailed me yesterday, I'll email you.
Should I, the AD, have received a Dropbox link?
You should have, but if you didn't, email me and I can work it out for you. Okay, so if you have a student that is not part of the class but wants to take the test, they cannot. In order for a student to take the stamp assessment, they have to be enrolled in a DLI school and enrolled in a DLI class. That is the only way they can take the stamp assessment.
Then the ELA question.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's all of them.
all right, well, let's hurry up and go to the next slide before anyone thinks that. Okay, So coming up real soon, next week, we'll have the first pre-ID file for WIDA access. You'll be able to see your students there. Not on the 30th, give me a day to get everything sorted out, but probably starting next Friday, you'll be, or maybe.
So, once the pre-ID file is loaded, you will not be able to see students until December, and I'll go over that date with you.
Oh, great.
But they will be loaded and materials will be ordered, and I'll go over that in more detail when we get there. But the first pre-ID file for WIDA access is the 30th.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, that's when it will be loaded. So get all your students in order. If you have a question about what students you're gonna see in the pre-ID file, if you think maybe someone is missing, email me and I can let you know who's gonna be in your pre-ID file. December 11th is when our second pre-ID file is gonna be uploaded. Just a reminder, it doesn't take students out. It will add students that have transferred to you or are new since October, but we don't remove students from WIDA access. That happens at the end of the testing window. Test window opens on January 6th for WIDA access. For ACT, the district test coordinator survey is still open. It's open until October 31st. After that, I will close it and you will have to email me and tell me you didn't fill out the survey that I reminded you about. And I will get you added. On November 8th, November 8th is a Saturday. On November 7th, I'm going to upload the pre-ID file for orgs to get your schools in. And then on the 14th, that's when the student pre-ID file will be uploaded into ACT. And then, you know, your testing window depends on which one you choose once you have access to ACT now. Next slide.
There is a comment. Box Elder District, I had to look through different chats. Box Elder District, they have a separate account where they pay for stamp tests for students not in DLI, but for seal of biliteracy purposes.
Yes. Yeah, and so you would, if you have a student that you would like to test separately in this situation, you would have to get in touch with STAMP. We have no ability to add other students. Alrighty, I'm done. Here's our, oh, I'm not done, darn. I tried to talk fast.
Actually, I don't know that that's for you.
Oh,
This is an ACT question.
Yeah.
Should we wait until ACT?
well, I'll be adding all the orgs from Utrecht. So if you are a new LEA or school, but you are in Utrecht, you should be added to ACT.
They did the survey, so if you did the survey, you'll get the welcome email.
Yep.
That gets you into everything, and if you don't see that with November,
Let's see,
maybe,
remember, if you aren't in by like November 12th, let me know and we'll get it, we'll get you sorted out. All right.
there's also gonna be an email coming out soon from ACT, essentially letting people know, welcome to ACT now, but also reminding you about putting in for accommodations. So everyone that's in this system will be getting that email around November 12th also, and if you don't see that email, then let us know.
Yeah, because there's a different place where you add the accommodations in and you'll need access to that too. If you don't have it.
Okay, I need to turn on mic or anything? Everyone can hear me okay? Okay, so Megan Lopez speaking here. We're gonna go over WIDA, essentially anything that Maureen Rushing just went over. Sounds like email her if you have any questions. I think we're gonna blow up her inbox, but that's okay, no apologies. I always start off by saying, never apologize, you're not bothering us, it's our job to support you, and I mean that. And one thing that is not on here that, because it happened yesterday, is I did have to send several LEAs an email concerning their alternate access and Braille access ordering. When you do that ordering's gonna be closing on the 27th. You do need to do it at the specific school site level. The district level is for additional materials. The reason why you wanna specifically do it to a school site is because Braille and alternate are going to be paper-based forms. And so you do need to have a school level label on it, and you can only get those labels if you order at the school level. So if I sent you an email yesterday, requiring action, that just means you need to go into AMS, WIDA AMS. I know it's not the most intuitive system. You have to click on everything twice to make anything happen. I have complained about that several times on everyone's behalf, including my own. But you do just need to change that order over to the school level if you did it at the district level. And just remember, everything that we are going to be ordering, there is always overage included. So if you're worried about extras, there will be overage. There is extra included in that order. So if you got that email, I'd really appreciate if you can take care of that over the next couple of days, and the ordering window does close on the 27th. So, all right, moving on to what was planned. Here we go. So we have one more training to offer for this year. That is in Midas. We really encourage that that you send this opportunity out. This one's going to be for duly identified students, so students that are identified as EL, but also have disabilities, so also identified for special education. So please sign up. The more we have, the better we can start serving all of our students.
Megan, can I throw in a, please pass this along to your special ed directors. I have put this in this month's what we call speedometer, which is how we communicate with special ed directors. But the more we can have you guys help pass along, the better that is. So thank you.
Yes. And I have also shared this with ALS directors as well. So, but the more you all can communicate, the better. All right, now, next. All right, a reminder. This, I've kind of been screaming since about June, the end of June, but I am still getting a lot of emails and calls saying, when we put our students on their computers to test, it didn't work. And then I said, well, did you update all of your secure browsers and your platforms and all that kind of stuff? And people are like, no, we didn't know we were supposed to. So it's so crucial that this information get out to your technology coordinators. If you are not that person, please make sure that they know that the updates have been available since the middle of the summer, and student devices do need to be updated, and the secure browsers and the administration platform, everything needs to be updated in order for the test to actually be able to run, whether it's screener or access. So please make sure that your technology folks are getting the message and updating all student devices and all your systems for testing. All right, there is a volunteer opportunity. Again, volunteer. This is not a have to, this is a get to if you want. WIDA is, this is a lengthy slide, sorry. I'm not gonna read it verbatim or anything like that, but WIDA is looking for opportunities to observe kindergarten access. The reason why they want to do this observation is because there's going to be standard setting taking place for access, the regular access this summer, and these observations are going to be a part of that consideration in that standard setting. So, again, it is not a have to, it's a get to if you want to apply. Sites that actually participate will receive $100 per participating student. So one school could have up to 8 observations, 8 students being observed. And that would mean that that school would receive $800, which isn't so bad. That's a pretty nice thing. So you're doing testing anyways. It would just happen during the regular testing window. Again, if you would like to volunteer and have the opportunity, it's not a guarantee that you'll be selected, but there is a link on this slide to fill out a survey to be considered for this volunteer opportunity. Again, you're testing anyways, might as well get free money for your school. I think that's awesome. And it's gonna help our students be better represented in that standard setting process as well. So, money and better results for Utah students. Okay. Okay, so let's get into it. Where are we with access testing? Okay, so we are in the test materials ordering window right now. This is for you all, and it is just alternate and Braille access. Those are the only 2 things that you would need to be ordering right now if you want to receive them with your initial shipment of materials. If you don't order it and you're like, oh no, turns out we do need one of these, you can still order it once the additional materials ordering window happens. But as I said at the opening of my slides, make sure that you're doing it at the school site level. That way you get the correct labels and there's no holdup in the scoring of these, okay? As Maureen said, we will be loading the first pre-ID file on the 30th. With that first pre-ID file, we will be doing the ordering of all kindergarten and online access materials for you. So you do not need to order any of those. We will be ordering all of those materials and you will get overage. And it is at the site level, okay? So that is what your initial shipment will be based on. After that, starting the 3rd of December, that is when you will be able to see all the students that were loaded from that initial pre-ID file, okay? We know that your enrollment changes a ton. That's why we will be doing a second pre-ID file on the 10th of December. We will not be ordering any additional materials for that second one. If you need any additional materials, you can start placing those additional materials on the 12th. And speaking of the 12th, that is when the 12th to the 15th, that is when you should expect to receive your test materials via UPS, I believe, is the shipping partner there. They will not try to deliver on the weekend though, so you don't need to worry. You just need to make sure, I believe it would be the 12th or the 15th, that you would need to make sure someone is there to sign for it. And hopefully no one will say, we're not receiving these and send them back. Believe it or not, that's happened. That's no good. So make sure someone's there to sign for it. And again, if you have any questions, no apologies, send them my way. I'm happy to help. All right. And then the rest of our testing dates, as we get closer to the rest of these, as you know, I will be sending out a lot of emails through AD memos. No, I'm not sending out AD memos. Sandra does that for us. I will be sending messages through the AD memo that Sandra sends out. And then you will also get reminders from DRC, and you will have all the steps required that you will need to do when doing the access testing. I do message all of this to ALS directors, and Tracy also shares everything with SPED directors through the speedometer. I love that. I want to come up with a creative name for our AD.
But it's only quarterly, friends. It's, or no, monthly. Sorry, we meet quarterly. It's only monthly, so we really do rely heavily on you guys to pass info.
Okay. SPED only meets quarterly, so y'all are communication just workhorses, okay? All right, So, testing window opens in January, and as you know, you will have students, enrolling throughout that whole time that you may need to be screening and then having take access. If you ever have questions, we have a lot of resources on our WIDA tab in our assessments, portion of our website. So take a look there, or again, just shoot me an email. We're happy to help. All right, now where are we going next? Observations. Tracy and I are going to start setting up observations to come and watch access. Your LEA will be contacted with information if you're selected to be observed. Just as a reminder, per our assessment and accountability observation 5-year plan, observations will be done along the Wasatch Front this year. I've actually already had some LEAs reach out and say, can you please come and observe us? And we are happy if you're like, hey, come on out. We want you to observe. We would love that you are here on the ground, boots on the ground, for technical support and questions that we may have. We might be new, or we have questions about administration. We'd really like you to come and see our processes. Let us know. People have already been asking, so we will be letting you know as we get our observation plan going, who will be coming to if you are selected, unless you're like, hey, we're just volunteering. Come see us. And if you're not along the Wasatch Front, but you really want that support and you want an observation, just let us know. And if we can make it happen, we're gonna do our best to try to accommodate that request. There's no guarantees, but we'll try. And just remember, observations, these are not compliance and monitoring. It is part of our requirements to pass peer review, to make sure that our assessment systems are flowing and also being administered with fidelity. And where can we as state partners help our LEAs in the process? So again, not compliance, not monitoring, it really is an observation to help all of us, so our students have a better testing experience.
Megan, can you answer about how much time you would give someone that you let them know that we're coming, to make sure that that's organized on the district's part?
Tracy and I are going to try to have a plan together by early November, so you should have a couple months notice, since testing doesn't start till January. We know that your testing may not kick off right away on January 6th. January 6th is that date, right? Okay. But some of you do start that date because you have a large population needing to be tested. But we will start scheduling that. We're gonna start working on that plan here over the next couple of weeks, but early November.
And do you let us know what kind of, you just like know that coming to the district, or do you select schools, or just just to make sure that's organized, because they're such a large district that I wanna, you know.
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. When we do observations, we work in partnership with what's gonna work best for your LEA, right? Where are certain areas that you prefer we observe, you know, or where can we be more supportive to help maybe make the process a little more smooth. So you want more eyes on that, or if you're like, this is a great example of how we run things, we want you to see this, to let us know if your thinking's in line with ours. That would work too. But yeah, if you're a large LEA, we'll work with you and we'll let you be a partner and kind of guide how that observation is going to be going.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great questions. All right. And I am done. So our contact information, email is always going to be best. Phone is hard to answer because we're in a lot of meetings. And again, those resources, we have our USBE WIDA assessment tab, and then we have our WIDA Utah website. Please make sure that you are starting to reference that access checklist on our WIDA Utah website. That'll help you along your journey of all the steps you need to be taking. So with that, thank you. He's unmuting right now.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Well, I can hear you
We
in my headphones, but the room cannot hear you. Stand back.
They probably don't need to hear me, only ADs.
I know, that was funny. I'm so used to hearing in two places. So I was like, hang on, I do hear you.
We do not.
Jared, can you say something again?
Something again?
Oh, we hear you.
Quiet.
Max volume, stand by. Say something again.
Something again.
There we go.
Don't waste his word count.
You can hear it all right?
Yes.
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm Jared Wright, and I'm gonna present a little bit on Acadians as well as Dallas. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so this slide and the next slide are around a couple questions that have come up. And so we've had internal discussions, and we want to be clear in communicating what the decisions were made. So this one, can teachers show parents the individual student responses? So we're talking about Acadians math and Acadians reading, and this is if a teacher is meeting with a parent and they're going through the data for Acadians, and the parent wants to see, okay, what does this look like, this particular measure? The educator, the teachers can share that the student's work or assessment with the parent and talk about the student responses. This can be done in a couple different ways with Acadians reading and Acadians math, the early numeracy ones in kindergarten and first grade that are online. You could show ALO and show that students' responses within the system. For Acadians math, since computation and concepts and application are done paper pencil, if you had the paper pencil version, you could also show that. That last sentence, though, is really important. So it's okay to show the parent, give them an idea of what's being tested and how the student responded, but we're not sending these home. We're not practicing these. Remember, these are measures that are testing a particular skill. So we're not test practice. We're actually trying to teach the particular skills that students need to know. So that last part, the student responses should remain in ALO in the system, or if it's the paper version, they're staying at the school, and you're not making copies, sending them home, doing that, but you're allowed to share those with the parents. Next slide. So this one has been a popular question thanks to the functionality of Acadians math. And I brought it up in a couple of AD meetings ago. And you guys provided some excellent feedback, and we were able to take that feedback and talk through it. There is a general like Utah retention schedule, and the link is in the slides, and that was shared way back when, and some ADs who were a part of that discussion remembered that, and you also brought up that it was shared in APAC meeting, and so there have been multiple discussions about this. As we talked about it, really the action at the bottom of the slides is what we're sharing. So and this is really around Acadians math, since that's the test that has the paper worksheets. So retaining Acadians math benchmark paper worksheets for the current year so that you have the information if you're going to validate the scoring or if you need to go back and see how a student did within that current year. So that's the minimum, is keep those worksheets for that current year. And then after that current year, those paper worksheets could then be securely destroyed. Our thinking around this is that it's important to have those worksheets, but once you move to the next year, benchmark testing is happening and you're keeping up on that, and those worksheets from past years aren't really utilized.
Here, can I ask a question here? So how does that come into play with an audit? So there's an audit, is just whatever we got in the system should be in the system is sufficient. We don't need evidence.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so the evidence would be the system. So as we looked at the retention schedule, it talks about having scores, it talks about having grades and so on recorded. And our take on that is that once you've entered those scores in the system, that's the information there. And then you're keeping the paper worksheets for the year if you need to validate scores or if you need to look at student responses in those paper forms. But there's nothing in there that I saw in the general retention schedule that said you can have the scores entered in the system and you have to have a paper copy. So we're taking that you have the scores entered into the system and that's where they're being housed, that's where they're being retained.
That's a perfect answer. My people will love that. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah. And tell them that was Acadians math.
Yep.
Math makes some good things happening for us. Yeah, and if there's any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. But those were the two big questions that we've been receiving and wanted to make sure those are clear. So as has been shared, please share this information with schools and with teachers to make sure they're aware of this. Next slide. And just an update, I've shared this multiple times, but just a reminder for Acadians math trainings, there's a link to the Google Doc with those two types of trainings. So the test administration and scoring and then data analysis. Dallas and I have been doing data analysis trainings for beginning of year. We're going to have more for middle of year and then end of year. So just being able to look at those as far as virtual and join, or there are Canvas courses as well. There is a question in the chat that maybe someone can jump in on that.
The question is,
Yeah,
any update about
we
when we
do-
can expect to see teacher names associated with classes in ALO?
We do not have an update at this time. We are currently working with Acadians. And it's actually on our agenda for our next meeting, which is next week, to discuss where things are at and what they're gonna be able to do for us. So I do not know.
So Teresa, to add on to that, so kids transferring from different districts, scores following, is that gonna be same part of that thing?
Yes, no, scores should be following right now.
Yeah.
If they are not, please let me know, because that should have gone into effect last spring and should be working just fine this year.
Could happen in what time frame?
About 48 hours.
Yeah, there's a lag.
48 hours. Okay, and just K through third, right?
If you don't see students transferring in, then that probably means their prior school has not released them from Data Gateway, or they're not in your UTRUC system and not being pulled in. And there's some errors in that regard. But if there are no errors and that student's data didn't transfer with them, please let us know as soon as possible, because that is a problem.
I was asked to ask you that question, so thank you.
Yes.
Okay, next slide, Emily. All right, I'll turn it over to Dallas.
Good morning, everyone. So the middle of year testing window opens on December 1st and closes on January 31st. So that is going to come up really, really quick. December 1st is in less than 6 weeks. So thinking ahead, if you have any staff members who have not been trained on Acadience reading or using ALO, there are going to be some courses offered throughout November for them to participate in, so they can just get their feet wet with Acadience reading and ALO. So please, like I said, if you have any staff members who are new to Acadience reading, have them enroll in one of these courses before administering any MOI assessment or any progress monitoring. Next slide. And then for staff who have been previously trained on ALO, if they want to do some extra practice or have some refreshers, here are self-paced courses that they are also welcome to enroll in. Next slide. Okay, now for the fun part, we are going to watch a video. So if you have a snack, go ahead and grab it to munch on. If you watch it. Please pay particular attention to when it talks about the dates correlated with the pathways within the ALO system. So that's really the purpose of this video, is just to get our minds wrapped around what pathways are, what it really means when we're talking about Acadience pathways for both reading and math, and then especially that correlation date. Emily, could you play the video in there? Is there a video in there? It's not showing.
I was gonna say, there's nothing else.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, there it is.
It's just next
You have
slide.
to click.
Cross your fingers,
Everybody's like.
cross your fingers, hold your thumbs.
I never heard the hold your thumbs either. How do you do that? Oh.
It's a Norwegian thing. You hold your thumbs.
Oh, I was
So
trying
I
to
tried saying hold your thumbs, but then I started going to school and everybody's like, no, you cross your fingers, you don't hold your thumbs. I was like, well, I hold my thumbs when I'm anxious.
That's cool.
Look at us learning. Wanna skip the ads? There we go. Is the audio thing?
Pause.
Hang on, it's,
You hear it there, but not here.
it's really quiet. I can't hear it in my headphones. So.
When you share, did you do the share audio?
I did, but. These.
Take these.
Promise it's an okay video. It's not being rejected.
We're just gonna try to log back into sharing again and see if this thing works. Try it this way. And then when we're done with the video, we'll change settings again. But maybe this will work.
Hey everyone! Today we are going to explore one of the most impactful features within Acadience Learning Online, or ALO, setting effective and ambitious student goals. First, let's address the foundational question. Why is goal setting so important? The entire system is built around the powerful research-based framework known as Pathways of Progress. Pathways of Progress is far more than just a target number. It's a dynamic tool that allows you to compare a student's rate of growth to that of their academic peers who started at the very same skill level. This provides the critical context needed to truly understand each student's academic journey. Really, it all boils down to this one big idea. We're using data to do more than just measure progress. We're using it to actively improve a student's trajectory and enhance their long-term opportunities for success. It's all about shaping brighter futures. To fully leverage this tool, it's essential to understand the visual language ALO uses, which is based on color. The system utilizes two distinct color-coded frameworks, one for a student's current performance and one for their growth over time. Let's start with the composite score, which indicates a student's current status. Blue or green scores are excellent indicators that a student is at or above the benchmark and on track for success. But yellow and red, those are our signals for additional support. A yellow score suggests the student will likely need strategic support, while a red score indicates that more intensive intervention will likely be necessary. The second color system visualizes growth over time. This is your pathway of progress. Light green represents typical growth, which is often a suitable target. Dark green signifies above typical growth, and blue indicates well above typical growth. Conversely, yellow and red mean a student's growth is falling below what's typical for their peers. Yellow shows below typical, and red shows well below typical growth. With a clear understanding of the color system, we can now discuss what constitutes a well-crafted goal. It's not just a random number. It has to be meaningful, ambitious, and attainable. Think of it this way. A meaningful goal is one that elevates a student to a higher benchmark status. For example, moving from yellow to green. An ambitious goal is one that aims for a faster, above typical rate of growth. And attainable? Well, that just means we know the goal is possible with high-quality, evidence-based instruction. This is where our instructional strategy becomes key, as our approach will differ based on student needs. For students with a green or blue composite score, a goal of typical growth is often sufficient to maintain their strong path. However, for your students with yellow or red composite scores, typical growth is not enough for them to catch up to their peers. For these students, we must set ambitious goals, aiming for above or well above typical growth to help them close the achievement gap. Now, let's get to the practical application and walk through the step-by-step process of setting these goals directly within the ALO platform. First, navigate to your student list and locate the goal column on the right-hand side. Click on the student's goal, and this will open the goal setting utility. On the left, you will see the student's starting performance. And on the right, using the sliders, you will see the student's end-of-year goals. This is your command center. The ALO platform will automatically set a goal that is at the midpoint of typical progress for students with a green or blue composite score and at the midpoint of above typical progress for students with a yellow or red composite score. But you have full control. To adjust a goal, simply use the sliders for each measure. As you move them, you will see the target scores and the corresponding growth pathway update in real time. Once you have set a pathway that is meaningful, ambitious, and attainable, don't forget to click the Save Changes button. Finally, let's discuss a topic that is critical to understand, particularly in light of recent platform updates, the connection between goals and your official testing windows. This is a really important update. The end of your goal you set is now automatically linked to the final day of the testing window set by your ALO account manager or assessment director. This is a significant change because it ensures the goal date and the pathways of progress calculation are perfectly aligned. For example, if your school's end-of-year testing window closes on May 12th, the goal displayed on the screen is the target score for that specific day, May 12th. That's the score we're aiming for the student to achieve by or before that exact date. But here's the key question. What happens if you assess a student after that date, say on May 20th? Well, the ALO system is really smart. It knows that the student has had more instructional time, so the goal actually increases to keep up. The goal will automatically move up along the aim line to reflect a new, appropriate target for that later assessment date. To recap these key points on timing, your goal's target date is the last day of your district's or charter's testing window. And if you test a student after that date, their target score will be adjusted higher to account for the extra instruction. Ultimately, setting these goals is not about a system dictating outcomes. It's about empowering you, the educator, to use your professional judgment. You're using this incredible data to guide your instruction and really make a lasting difference for every student. Here's one last question to reflect on. How will you use these ambitious, data-driven goals to shape your instruction and empower each of your students to achieve their full potential?
iExcel is helping 15 million students succeed in math and
We do have another video after, so whatever you did magically.
Do it again.
So that ALO goal setting and pathways video, I am asking you to please share with admin and with teachers. The more awareness we can have about how the assessment works and why we're using the assessment, why we're using pathways, the better. So please share that out, share with anyone. In about 2 slides, there is a link to that video, so just easy access to get to it. I'm going to share one more video with us. The next video is a What is Acadience Reading Overview. It is an informational video for parents. And so this is meant as a parent resource. It was linked in the slide that Teresa talked about earlier for resources that we have available. This next video, please share out with parents in your LEA, again, just to raise awareness so parents understand what the Acadience Reading Assessment is and why we are using the Acadience Reading Assessment.
I'm just gonna, since I'm already in here.
Oh.
No.
Try and find it. Maybe if we go back to this assessment page. I'll even just type in what is Acadience Reading.
Cozy fall vibes, that's cool, Google. Whatever you're into.
Alright.
No worries.
What is Acadience Reading, that one?
Yeah.
We are going to talk about one of the biggest tools your child's school uses to determine if your child is on the right reading track, Acadience Reading. Acadience Reading is like a checkup. It's not a big, scary test. It's a series of short one-on-one activities that teachers use to see if students are picking up the essential skills for reading, right from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. The goal is to be proactive. It helps teachers spot any bump in the road early so they can jump in with the right kind of support at exactly the right time. It's all about preventing problems before they start. Becoming a reader isn't just one thing. It's a bunch of different skills all working together. Here's a way to picture it. It's called the reading rope. Each of these little strands is a different skill. Things like hearing the sounds and words, knowing your letters, and reading smoothly. And when you twist all those strands together, you get one super strong rope. And that's what a skilled, confident reader is. Here's where it all connects. Each of those Acadience checkups is actually testing one specific strand of that rope, and every piece has its own important job. The checkups may differ depending on what grade level your child is in and may even change during the school year. Let's focus on each measure that's tested. For first sound fluency, a teacher might say something like man, and your child should respond by saying the first sound, This helps the teacher understand if your child can hear and identify the first sound in words. Letter naming fluency is a quick assessment of how fluently a student can name individual letters. Phoneme segmentation fluency is the ability.
Okay, so that was just a little preview of the parent video. We're good to go back to the slideshow. Thank you. That's just a preview of it. If you are really desperate to, you can finish that video later on today. But the first video I shared, I am begging you, please share that out with school personnel. The second video that we got a preview of, I am also begging you to please share with parents. Again, just the more awareness we have, the more understanding that we have around the assessment and the more we're likely to use it for the benefit of our students. So on the next slide, once it gets pulled up, there are just 3 resources there linked. 2 of them are the videos that we just shared for easy access to those videos. And then there is also a link to sample parent notification letters for beginning of year Acadience reading scores. If you have not already sent out those notifications, they are due on October 30th. Please reach out if you have any Acadience reading questions to me or to Jared if you have any Acadience math questions.
Alice, our reading person has complimented you and appreciates your videos.
Oh, thank you.
I was gonna say, I feel like we need to be like, yay.
The best video goes to.
That's not hard when there's only one.
Awesome. Elise is not here. And so I'm going to fill in for Elise, and I probably won't talk as fast as she does. And I probably won't have all the answers she would have, but I'll do my best and we'll go forward. First one's just a reminder on UTIPs. I think it's a 3-day, first 2 to 3 days on newly enrolled courses. It takes a while to get those students and everything into the system, and that's typical for UTREX and rostering. Also, just, it's not on a slide, but we had a request, thanks to some work we did in Emory, to have the science tests relabeled, and that's mostly been done now. So the science tests, instead of being labeled with a really weird code number that only made sense to those of us who've ever worked in the Pearson's Abbey system, they're now labeled with the actual standard that they align to. So bio 1.1, bio 1.2, and so that teachers can go in very quickly and easily without having to look at the entire cluster that's there for the high school science benchmarks. They can actually see what those are aligned to now. I think the chemistry or the physics, one of those is still on the docket to get fixed, but we are getting those updated so they are more usable for your teachers. A little bit on UTIPs more
So
there.
Scott, I'm gonna ask you a question really quick, even though you might not know.
Why not?
So RISE has benchmarks for our tests, right?
Right.
Now from 3 through 8. Is the plan to have that same type of process for 9th and 10th
Eventually.
eventually?
Yeah, we gotta build the summative first.
Yep.
And then after we get enough summative built, we'll start peeling tests off from the summative to use on the RISE benchmarks. And I think there might be some extra development going on to make sure that that happens also. So we have a lot of development happening right now. There is I heard it even today. There's a rumor that says we take all the rejected ones and we make them into benchmarks. Geez, I'm so tired of hearing that. Nothing on the benchmarks was ever rejected. Anything that ends up being rejected through whatever level of review does not get put in front of students. That would be bad practice and bad for kids. We don't do that. So anytime you hear that, please nip it in the bud. It's frustrating for us to hear it, but I guess I heard that today too.
All of those items that are on our benchmarks have gone through the exact same process as all of the items on the summative.
Yep.
So they've gone through the same type of iterations of edits and analysis and data reviews and content reviews. So they are just as usable and accurate as the ones on the summative. They're more items so that you can use them as formative assessments. But we are planning to work towards those for the high school rise, and they'll be that content based instead of grade based. And so those are going to be specifically coded to the courses and not to the grade level. So they won't show up as 9th grade or 10th grade. They'll show up as biology, chemistry, physics, or earth space.
So, thank you, good question. Yeah, we appreciate that question. We get it frequently, and we want to make sure everyone knows that eventually will happen. That is on the plan for that. Moving forward, for Avant.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
hold on, I just got a response back about mouse, so let me just.
Ooh, the question about the mice.
About mouse.
Use the trap.
Their user guide says a mouse is needed, but the built-in touchpad or trackpad on a laptop will work, but you should definitely test it out on a sample test before you get a kid signed into a regular test to not use the mouse. There you go.
Excellent. And I'll have to remember that for the next time we get that question on an email.
I'll write it down.
Guaranteed. Okay, moving forward, our stamp window opened on the 20th, just opened this Monday, and surprisingly smooth compared to what we were, not gonna.
Everyone knock on wood right now.
Cross your fingers. So far going fairly well. There's a link here for the Avant webpage for Utah specifically. And there's also a link for the site for testing and reporting, where you should be able to log in. Moving forward for Avant. So there's some new stamp training information. So there's been some training updates. One of these was included in last week's AD memo in terms of the Dropbox access guidance. There's also some information here we're going to go over in terms of viewing rosters, monitoring testing progress, and entering participation codes, because we worked really hard with STAMP to get those set up in the system too. Moving on, the Dropbox access guidance. That's where it's going to go, right? There we go. Didn't jump twice.
There's a delay in here.
Yeah, there's a slight delay. So the PDF that was provided in the memo, and it's also posted on the Avant Utah webpage. When it comes to Dropbox, you may start receiving marketing emails. I know that Elise has received quite a few more than I have. And so I don't know if it depends on settings in your computer or personnel, what you do, but for now, we're saying ignore those, but don't unsubscribe just yet. We're working with Avant to see if we can minimize those, but it's something from Dropbox itself. One of the things I got was asking if I wanted to merge my personal account with the Avant account. Don't do that. I found out the hard way. Luckily, I was able to go back and reverse it. It wasn't too hard to reverse it, but that was not a good merge. But yeah, just keep it separate and ignore any of those marketing emails that come in or delete them. And once we get further guidance on that, we will let you know what to do about that if we can find a way to minimize that. But it's more of a Dropbox thing in their system and not Avant. So Avant's looking into that for us. The moving on.
While we're waiting for the lag, this is only going to be how users are getting their test codes this year. As soon as the testing window ends in January, we're gonna start working on next year, and your users, we'll get there's information in a completely different way next year. It doesn't involve third parties or links or things of that nature.
Yep, Avant has been exceptionally accommodating on a lot of that. And so it's been really nice. It's been really nice working with them, especially Michael C.
Yes.
Who's been working with us there. He deserves a huge bonus. He's been moving mountains to get this system up.
Unfortunately, we just ran out of time for users. We prioritize students always, and we ran up against the testing window, so.
So if you email us and ask us to add a user for you, the answer is we can't. We don't even have that kind of access. And so you do need to contact Avant, and it has to be the assessment director or the person who has LEA level access to their system. Contact them and let them know who you want to add, whether it's a teacher or a non-teacher who's helping you proctor, whoever it is. They're the ones that have to add that. And so you can email us if you want, but we're just gonna send you this information and say, sorry, you've got to contact to do that. Moving forward. So accessing your rosters, you log into the testing center with your username or test code and password, and then you'll get the teacher code with the random passwords that will pop up inside of the spreadsheet that's in that system. Next slide. Schools you have access to will appear in the school location list. So we have the Tooele district up here for, it's a good example. And so if you're seeing something that doesn't belong to you in your district, in your school, let us know that right away. We've had a couple of incidences where that's happened, and it's been a pretty easy fix for us to contact Avant and get that worked out.
Yeah, they're very responsive, so usually on the same day, they'll get everything straightened out.
Yeah, they're very quick on that. We appreciated that. You should see your schools and location on that list. Next slide. After you pick that location, the test groups are listed by group name and language. And it's kind of nice for us because we see the same thing here, because we can go through, we get access to all the LEAs, of course, and we can pick up, someone will say, well, I'm seeing this, and we can go into the system and go, yep, you are seeing that. We're seeing the same thing. And it makes it easier for us to fix it. But select the group name if you want to view that roster. Next slide. The assigned students will appear under the list for that class. Students will use their SSID as their login name. If that's not what's showing up, please let myself and Maureen know, and we can get that fixed. Because we've had some cases where it's been the district, the LEA ID that's been showing up. Sometimes that's been happening, or sometimes some of them have been some weird numbers. We don't know what they are. But we've been able to, at least, like I said, get that fixed very quickly. And if you have a list there where you're not seeing a student that should be there, or the reverse, you're seeing a student that should not be there, let us know that also. We'll work on getting that fixed also. We've had a couple of those. Not as many of those we feared, so it's working pretty well. You have a student not enrolled in DLI showing up, Jeff?
We do have a little issue where we've got it narrowed down to the correct LEAs where DLI schools are, but they haven't filtered out all the non-DLI schools. So you might see some students that are enrolled in DLI courses, but not at the DLI school. We're working on that. So just for now, just disregard those students. Please don't give them a test. And that's the next thing on our agenda. That's one of the things we're talking about tomorrow.
Julie's saying that the SSID is not lining up with the student names. It could be off by 1 or 2 lines.
I think that's fixed today. I noticed that yesterday. I looked at some courses today and they seem to be lined up today.
So if you're having a problem with that, Julie, fire us off an email, let us know.
I know that was very annoying that there was like, the column was off, but I think they fixed that.
And Ryan said there are a large number of students not rostered, and you talked about that. We're looking at getting those ones that aren't rostered in there to fix that. So yeah, well, Andy, we'll keep looking at that, and hopefully by our call tomorrow with Avant that we have, we'll be able to get all those fixed and addressed. But like I said, all things considered, we're still pretty happy with how smooth this has been, especially compared to other roll-ups we got. Moving forward to the next slide. I'm also know that the summary information is also available on the list, and I don't, Elise wrote that one. I'm not sure what that one means.
You'll get a little chart at the top when you look up a class that'll show you how many students have tested, how many haven't started.
That's true.
I think that's what.
And we see it for the entire state and for all the different languages and tests too. That's ends up in a lot of scroll. When I log into the system, I got to do a lot of scrolling to get down to where the students in schools actually are. But that's usually at the top of the list. Next slide. Ryan is saying that login column is still misaligned.
Oh, what LEA? 'Cause
Who are you with, Ryan? PCSD?
Park City.
Park City?
Park City, okay. You might need to maybe clear your cache and your cookies.
I just had a
because-
flashback on that one. Clear cache or clear cookies?
Because everywhere I look, I'm not looking at elementary though. If you're looking at elementary, maybe.
Yep. So Maureen's checking that out real quick, but we're not seeing that right now, Ryan. So maybe clear your cache or clean out your cookies and see if that fixes it. And so accessing the rosters for the teacher, you'll see the list and the summary of that immediately after that login. After the summary and the list, you'll see that list of the test takers within those rosters to access the rosters. Next slide. In terms of monitoring test progress, again, you log into the system. Next slide. And you're looking for a test taker search button. That's usually right there across the top above the summary. So you can search for your test takers there. Next slide. There's also that high level status of overview that shows the summary of test not started, test in progress, and all that. That'll still be at the top of that test taker search. Next slide. You can search for specific students using that search. You can select the school. You can narrow it down by the language and the product or whatever that's the test that they're taking in the test code and filter out for those test takers. Next slide. So you show the SSID being used to search for a student. Unstarted test, if you're searching for a student and they haven't started the test, you need to clear that pre-filled date search box. Because that's got a date in it, it's looking for a specific date and the student hasn't started yet, won't come up in the search. So make sure that's cleared and you can get in and find them that way. If you're not seeing them and you know that they've logged in, but they haven't started. Next slide. So participation codes, again, logging into the system. Next slide. Looking for that list portion at the bottom, and you want to find the list of the students that need those codes added. It's on the far right side of the spreadsheet. You might need, if your screen size is a little small, you might need to scroll over to get that. So scroll to that far slide, and then you're going to click on the participation code link. It's going to drop down a drop down box. Next slide. And that'll give you all the different options for the participations you code. With, of course, the parental exclusion probably being the most common one you have to put in there. And so you just need to, if you enter a code in, it's the wrong one, it's okay. You can always reset to none. And if you, I did this to the wrong student, darn it. And then you can go back and fix it. It's not a problem. So you have control over that, and so do we. So if you need help, let us know.
You do not have to put in 200. If it's just a regular participation, don't put in anything, and we take care of those after the testing window closes.
Yep. That's participation codes. That was actually some of the first problems we started seeing with misalignments. Was the participation code column was throwing everything off. So they got that fixed so far. So hopefully keep it fixed. Next slide. So if you stamp support, usually most things, it's reach out to Avant and contact their support system. If you have any questions about dual immersion itself, Carl Bowman's your contact on that. When she gets back on Monday, Elise is your contact for test administration, but until then, please make sure you contact me if you have any questions about that. Maureen, of course, for rostering, and Jessica for anything on accommodations, and then any testing ethics issues to come up or any policy questions, please give me a contact on that. I think we're gonna take a break. Woo! Because I'm gonna get tired of talking because Elise has a lot of slides today, and that's okay. That's what I'm here for. So let's take, what, 10 minutes? 10-minute break. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back to your friendly assessment director meeting. I had a long question in the chat from Jason, a couple of accommodations on the oral translation. The guidelines are similar, I guess, similar to RISE in that if you have a student that requires translation, like it's a Spanish immersion class and they need the instructions and the prompts translated into Spanish, that is an allowable accommodation. There is a request email that you send in through special ed. I don't know that off the top of my head, and Jessica's not here. And that email will go to Jessica to approve or not approve that based on the accommodation that's needed. And so we're gonna follow the same thing we do for special accommodations to testing, like in RISE or other tests. And so, yeah, that's an accommodation that could be as a load on testing, trying to figure out how to accommodate it. We agree. There is in the future, hopefully for next year, the possibility that we'll get a monolinguistic test, which seems weird to say that for dual immersion. But the monolinguistic test in which the instructions and the prompts are in that language, and we know that that could be available for Spanish in the future, but right now we don't have that available. Right now, we're just pedaling hard to get the system up and running. And so, yeah, the scratch paper is allowed as a USBE accommodation, and that's on the I believe under our Utah of on-site. That should be blank paper, not lined or graph paper. And that has to be an accommodation that the student receives already. It can't just be something you toss at the student and say, here, have this as an extra help. If it's not an accommodation the student's using currently in the classroom, they shouldn't be using it on the assessment. If the scratch paper otherwise could, if it's not an allowable accommodation for the student, could be a problem. If they're indicating it's a tool for all, I'm not aware of that, but drop Jessica an email. She can give you better or more detailed guidance on that, since she's on that, and she'll be back on Monday as far as I'm aware. Unless she decides not to come back. She's on her vacation. So moving forward on RISE, yay, RISE. Few things on RISE coming up here. The CUS scores are now available on the RISE
That's me,
portal.
Scott.
That's you, good.
Yeah.
Math, too bad on the chart.
Yes, so we do have our RISE ELA skill scores here that with the actual nice chart, they are available on the RISE portal, so they've been updated there and you can download them if you would like to. So this is just the visual. Those scores are available for you in the RISE portal, as was discussed earlier. And you might notice that these skilled scores are very different numbers. We did that on purpose so that teachers and administrators and everybody could not easily compare to last year, because it is a different assessment. It assessed different standards, our new standards. It had the removal of the speaking and listening and editing items. And so we didn't want people looking at it and making comparisons to last year's scores when they are not really comparable. So our data and statistics team does a great job of being able to figure out that growth through all of their statistics ends, but just a direct comparable score does not work. So we did move this and move the numbers up into the 1,000 scale for that reason. Next slide. So those ELA scores are available. Writing will be available on November 3rd. And just a reminder that our writing report is going to look very different. It has two categories. We have a composition category for either the argument or informative writing, and that is a scale of 1 to 6. And then we will have a convention score, which is a scale of 0.5 to 3. And the two scores are not intended to be added together. So we really want them to be looked at as two separate scores because they're assessing different elements of writing. One is really the composition and content of like what the student actually wrote. And the other is that the conventions, which is looking at sentence fluency and then your traditional conventions of punctuation and capitalization and spelling and correct grammar. So
There's a question in the chat for you.
Insufficient to score.
Oh, insufficient data.
No, yeah, if they didn't have enough information, I do not know the answer to that, Brittany. If they are scored as insufficient to score, are they counted as participated?
Yes.
And is that categorized as below proficient?
Oh, below proficiency, I think that is.
They're only included in
Yeah.
participation, not the proficiency.
Okay. So I was like, that is not me. That's an accountability question.
They're included in participation, but not included in the participation or growth.
And this is where we show up as a one in the platform or just saying,
I think it says investment.
thank you.
They don't have score.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So our new writing benchmark modules and then the ELA interim assessments will be available November 4th. Other than the grade 7 informative writing benchmarks, which we did not get enough participation for, those will still be field tested for this year and they will be available in February without automatic scoring. And if we still don't get enough participation, then we will not have them. So we're not going to continually just keep field testing those.
We did have one. We got one. Yeah.
I thought that was just the argument once.
We had a one, grade 7 one that had enough participation.
Yeah.
But we'll have argument and informative that need to be field tested. So keep an eye out for Megan begging emails, memos, everything. Let's make it happen.
Yes. So the writing benchmarks for the other grades and then some of the grade 7 will be available with the automatic scoring that is aligned to our RISE writing rubrics starting November 4th. Will just be those few grade 7 ones that need to be that will not receive the automatic scoring and still need students to participate in order to get enough responses to then grade them and train our scoring engine and to be able to provide that automatic scoring. So, but that will not happen until February so that we're in the same time frame so our scores from last year and the scores from this year can be comparable. Next slide. And then we do really want to know if there is interest for students enrolled in 11th and 12th grade to have optional participation in our RISE triggering courses, which is mostly consisting of our science courses. So it could be secondary math 3 for math, and then our physics, chemistry, earth science, and biology, and that they would be able to participate in those end of year course assessments, but not have any of their scores count towards the accountability piece, which is just for 9th and 10th graders. But then teachers and schools and LEAs would have that information on how students are doing overall, since we do know that some of those courses will, especially our physics and chemistry, are likely to have a much smaller amount of 9th and 10th graders participating in the course. So it's not going to provide as much information to the teacher about how they're doing without everybody or most students participating. So please, we got very limited response last month. So please fill out the survey to better help us know if this is something that you actually would be interested in and would like for us to pursue on our end with our vendor and rostering and all those things that have to happen on the back end to make that possible. Next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie for some calculator.
Yeah. We do have a new feature for our on-screen RISE calculator where students can now copy paste their answer from the calculator into the response field. And I saw some tapping up in the corner. Yeah, hopefully this will help with students who have struggled with providing their most accurate response from the calculator and then having to rewrite it again in the assessment platform itself. A couple of things to note for this particular feature. It is available for all math and science RISE assessments where calculators are provided on screen. So that is inclusive of not only the calculator types, basic, scientific, and graphing, but also all grades and types of assessments, benchmarks, interims, training tests, summative. It will be on every one of those assessments for those grades that have on-screen calculators available. However, because it is a copy paste feature, it is only applicable to what we call the equation response items, where the student has to enter a numerical answer. And you'll see at the bottom of the screen is kind of what that would look like on the screen for the student. A blank box likely has a little keypad in there. Why don't we go on to the next screen, Em? The next slide, please. Just a quick overview of what this looks like for the student. When they have their calculator pulled up after they perform an operation, they'll see the little copy icon next to their output. Looks like the little double page icon. They just need to click that. And then next slide, please. And then on their response field, they will need to click on that little keypad in the response field. And then where the numbers and operations show up below, there's a little clipboard with a check. They just need to click that, and that will paste their response right into the field exactly as it shows in their on-screen calculator. So with that in mind, if the item requires the student to round, they will need to do that themselves because the paste will paste exactly what is showing on the calculator output. So just keep that in mind for reading instructions. On to the next slide, please. And here is our contact info if you have any questions about that. Just a quick word about the calculator resources link. We are currently working on getting that updated with the new calculator manual. It has not been posted quite yet, but we plan to include all the information that we just talked about in that as well, so teachers can refer to that as needed. And that is all for me.
Teresa, there was another question put in the chat. Will there be a report / breakdown or option for last year's ELA summative scores so they know what their strengths and weaknesses are?
Writing?
It just says.
Is it, yeah.
ELA summative
ELA.
scores.
Isn't the strengths and weaknesses?
It's already.
That's. I don't know, I have to remember. I'll look it up. I will answer that in just a minute.
And then another one just came in. Did the window to report RISE scores to parents begin on Monday in terms of the ELA scores?
Technically, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say technically, yes, knowing that these have been delayed and there are many students who are no longer at your schools, like trying to make sure that you're getting, I think there will probably be a little understanding with that 3-week window, as long as you're trying to make sure that students are, parents are informed and students are informed of their scores.
Utah Aspire Plus, I think this is a short one. If I remember right. Pearson Tech Training, for your tech people on January 21st, coming up, the Midas course is listed there. Utah Aspire Plus Admin or Administration Training is on January 29th, so all next year. The Midas courses are there where you can sign up and get ready to take, get people on those trainings so you can share that. If a student left our school last year, took RISE ELA, we have to send out their ISR.
Is that a question?
Yeah, that'd be a
Yes.
question in the chat. I think it would depend if you have a forwarding address for where they left. I mean.
Yeah, so if this, typically that's the protocol that you would follow, that if you have students that have left your school, that you are able to send those to the student or parents. If you are not able to send them, if you don't have an address to send them to, I think maybe have a protocol in place of having that available to make sure if the parents do come back and ask, that you've noted somehow that you looked to do it, that you've looked to forwarding and don't have anyone to send it to. And then I responded in the chat about the other request about holding off to send the ELA scores until you have the writing scores and sending them both at the same time. I think that makes sense. And at this point, it's far enough out of when these tests were administered, that waiting until you have a full portfolio to send to them makes sense for those 5th and 8th grade students.
And then I will quickly answer the question as far as the strong or weak. That is there at the class level, but not the individual student level. So there is a breakdown at the class, what the strengths and weaknesses were for the class itself. The individual student is going to show you the overall how the student did on informational and then how they did on literature. So it's just showing the 2 scores for the individual student level. It's the informational text versus the literature, but the teacher can see the breakdown of the strengths and weaknesses along with the info and literature, and then the breakdown of the 3 different combinations of standards. So the craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, and the key ideas and details.
Next slide. Okay, if you're looking for the 2026 schedule events for Utah Aspire Plus, it is under the orientation on the administration resource tab, and it's downloadable as a PDF. ACT, fun stuff starting to happen. Things are starting to roll out, as we heard from Maureen on ACT. The schedule of events has been posted. People have been asking about that. You can get there from that link here. Or if you're on the Utah ACT website, at the top of the page, there is also a link that will take you to the schedule of events. 9 times out of 10, when we get questions, we always send you to the schedule of events because that's where we go to find the answers to. Remember, ACT runs this. ACT now will become available soon. Last year was in November, and that will happen once Maureen gets all of your LEA level, probably you or whoever you have designated on that survey of hers. Once that gets designated, they'll get that access to ACT now. And then, of course, people will be asking us when the students are going to get uploaded. That'll happen, of course. Is it usually December, isn't it?
No, the pre-ID file will happen November. I'm shooting for the 10th.
November 10th. Awesome. Moving forward, ACT. The training's coming up. We had the accommodations training already on November 13th on the site readiness training. Thanks to your feedback and frankly, thanks to Elise being pretty stubborn. She's pushed the ACT to do something we very rarely see. They have made huge changes to their training on this next one because of Elise's feedback and stubbornness. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how this one comes out, including some stops along the way. Instead of having to wait to the end, there are going to be built-in stops for questions and answers in different sections. And so we're going to be getting the final draft of that to us soon. But it's been interesting to see so many changes that ACT has made. We found out that the people who do their trainings aren't the same people running our program. It's a different section and a different area. And we've been able to push hard to get a lot of changes there. And we're looking forward to a lot of changes in the future with ACT. There's some other stuff coming down the pike that we're pretty excited about. All the training are through USBE Zoom. Those links have been sent out in the AD memos and will be on our Utah website. There's no registration required, and it will be recorded. Let me say that again in case you wanted to ask. It will be recorded and put on the USBE assessment website, like it always is. And so that's the next training coming up, including the ones that are planned for pre-test and test day administrations. Those are all set. Moving forward, next slide. The ACT grad class information data was just released, and I can finally say out loud, I've been holding it inside really hard for a long time because we've been told not to spread the news too late till ACT does their press release. Utah scores have gone up for the 4th or 5th year in a row, and we're the only state, as far as I know, where that's happened among states that test all of their juniors. All the other states saw declines in their ACT scores. So a huge kudos out to our Utah educators. This is not just something that happens the junior year. This starts in kindergarten and goes all the way up to the point where these kids take this test, including the ones that took the test again in 12th grade. It's the most recent score that's come out on there. Utah students did fantastically on this test. And And people ask, well, why does that? And that's because we got great educators, frankly. They're doing a great job, and you should let all of them know that it's from the time these kids start in our schools and get that fantastic education in the beginning that allowed them to do so well on this test. I have other states wanting to talk to us about why we're so successful at this. And all I can say is because of the educators we've got. They're just very dedicated and work really hard on this. And so thank them, and thank you guys for all your support on that. It's fun to get data like that, because I keep hearing, I had to keep biting my tongue, keep hearing in the news, ACT scores are down across the nation, not in Utah. Congratulations to our educators and to our students for that. Next slide. And so based on our contract, our average composite score last year was a 20. We went up in all the benchmark areas for ACT on this. And that's just been really nice to see in terms of the percent of students meeting those benchmarks. It's just like to see everything go up is just fun. And so that was nice to see. And this is just on our tested juniors. Our average composite score the year before was at 19.8. And so going up from 19.8 to a 20 that's a big jump. We've been doing little movements of 0.1 here and there, but to do a 0.2 jump was a pretty good size jump for an ACT score. Next slide. A reminder on super scores. When it comes to that composite score, especially, the national test has started doing, we said English, math, and reading are the only three that are being used in that composite score. That started in April for all of the students, including the ones that we're testing. That's starting this year. Began September of this year, but so that when kids take the test, whatever your window is in March or April, it'll be those scores. We are still giving the science test. I'm going to say that again because people keep asking, are we still giving the science test? Yes, we are. It's actually part of the contract with ACT through 2027, and based on your feedback, based on educator feedback, based on APAC information, people want that to continue here in Utah. So that's the message that we're sending to the board when that contract gets renewed in 2027. But until then, science test is definitely still on there. The science test is used to develop the STEM score. And one of the things that actually surprised ACT when they reported on that science test is our students who are going back to retake the test, our seniors that did the retakes, 98.7% of them took the science test again. They didn't have to, but they did. And so even for our students, that science test is being seen as something that's very important on their doing their retakes. So the vast majority of them were doing that science test on retakes. And that was really good feedback for us to get, at least from ACT. So we'll continue to report the highest scores for all those subjects. And unless the contract, of course, changes in a couple of years. Next slide. Oh, that was the last one.
Wait, what?
What?
We need to add
Yeah.
a thank you slide.
Yeah, and so also real quick, if you're looking for your graduation class data, that should be in the ACT success system. It should be downloadable to you now. If you aren't seeing it, you can write me all you want about it, but you're gonna have to contact the ACT help desk in the success system and let them know, because I have absolutely no control over how that data gets loaded into that system. And neither does Elise, and neither does Maureen. And so yeah, I have to contact ACT and ask, and they've always been pretty helpful in terms of helping you get the data that you're specifically looking for. I did find out also that on ACT's main website, I was going to send out something on an AD memo next week. They've come out and they're starting to use Tableau, which our data and statistics department here uses, where you can go and you can look at and do state comparisons on the ACT website now, comparing the different states in terms of the grad class data that's just been released. And that's been interesting to go in and actually see that. And so we'll send a link out so you can actually look at where we're doing compared to other states also. So,
Which is better.
which is better.
Yes.
Yeah. It's nice to pull you up and say, hey, how much better are we than this state? Just for giggles, it's fun.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, our October AD meeting. Appreciate the questions that you've had in the chat. Aaron did mention when I asked him about the Tableau question that those, that will be simultaneous and equivalent to the data gateway. So whatever day we have the ELA scores entered into data gateway, that Tableau information will also be available. We'll find that timeline as soon as we get the data file from CAI and then work that out. So we'll let you know next week what we expect the timeline for the ELA information to be in data gateway. But in the meantime, if you have other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, everybody.
We did get one more question.
Okay.
Will those 3 standards be downloadable soon?
What?
Those 3 standards.
I think he was asking about the knowledge and, the integrated knowledge and ideas, like those 3 standards. I'm not sure about downloadable though.
So you can download the reports at the class level, which is going to have that information about with the breakdown of the 3 different standards groupings.
They've never been available at the student level though.
Yeah, they've never been available at the student level and they still are not, but yes, they can be downloaded from the RISE portal like right now. So they were available on Monday.
And I think there was a question earlier, if anyone has any recommendations for a new assessment director working with Tableau or information on Tableau. Trying to remember, going back up, Dan, yeah, Dan Rose. So if anyone has any feedback or information about learning Tableau, and helping Dan Rose, if you want to reach out to him.
Yes, please.
We appreciate that. Yes, please. Experience or information. And Dan, Aaron Bruff here at the state would be our contact that has, information about Tableau. Oh, not the breakdown. So Bradley Thornton saying the export data only has reading and lit and information, not the reporting categories.
Probably because the export data is at the student level and not the class level. So I think if you want to see that breakdown, you'd have to go online, but Elise is the expert on the reporting. And so that would definitely be a question for her, but I believe the export does it at this student level, which is why you're not seeing those categories. Because those categories only exist at the class, school, and LEA level.
And Mark, for a Tableau account, I would reach out to Aaron Bruff. I know we had somebody reach out earlier for an account and David Mackey created that for him, but I would reach out to Aaron Bruff and then I don't know if he assigns different people to create those accounts.
I think David is the only one who can, other
make
than
those.
Aaron.
Oh. Yeah. We'll hang out for a minute if you have any other questions. But thank you all.